Hello and welcome back to the United Devils podcast. Today we're going to be discussing United's mixed fortunes with the 3-2 win against Southampton and then a demoralising loss to Paris Saint-Germain at Old Trafford before looking ahead to the West Ham game on Saturday evening and then the final match of the Champions League group stage against RB Leipzig. With me today, welcome back, Suraj, and we'll start chronologically as usual with the Southampton match. And going into the game, the lineup was relatively unsurprising, bar one small change where Greenwood comes in for an ill Martial, although Cavani was on the bench. Van der Beek got a start. And Suraj, let's talk about the first half because it seemed to everything was going to go wrong. Missed chances, an open goal once, a sitter, and then two goals out of nothing really, and what's worse, a hair injury. Well, what was your reaction at the blow for the end of the first half?
End of the first half was pretty much just the one thought that everything that could go wrong is going wrong. You know, everybody knew James Ward-Prowse's set pieces are excellent. The first corner they got, they converted. Second, again, Fred, he got skinned by Genepo and gave him a free kick pretty much right outside the box. And that spot is pretty much what Prowse's bread and butter. And he was going to convert it. Before it went in, I knew that there was a goal. And then De Gea's injury was quite unfortunate actually because that's something you can't really foresee, right? Colliding into a post. I did see a few analyses by pundits saying that De Gea should have done better to stop that free kick in the sense he set the wall up in such a way that invites Ward-Prowse to take a corner to his to the post where he scored pretty much, and De Gea did that and he himself drifted away from the post, which he shouldn't have ideally. So pretty much at halftime, I was just thinking, well, here we go again. The Southampton game would either put us 6 points off the top, or how many were there? 7 or 5, not too sure. But it also had the potential to put us in the bottom 6. And I was just praying because the margins are too tiny. So just imagine one win takes you right to the top and one right to the bottom. And when they scored two, I just thought, we're gone. The bottom.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where nothing went right. It reminded me a lot of the Burnley game where we gave away two relatively weak goals, and the chances we created we missed early on in the game, and the momentum swung towards the other side, and the De Gea injury. I mean, obviously the free kick, some people raise questions over it, like you said, and it always looks worse when a goalkeeper gets their hand to the free kick if he doesn't move, which honestly I thought he had every right not to. It was such a fantastic effort, but it would have looked a better free kick. It would have looked unstoppable. But the fact that he does get a hand to it, I thought he did well to just do that. I mean, it was a difficult scenario. Like you said, yeah, heads dropped, and with the game counting for so much in the league, I can't remember a time when United could say we could lose this game and we'd be fine. There's always been a point where you have to win, otherwise it looks awful. The manager's job is under question. The players are going to be criticised, and things will just go worse from there. So going into the second half, the two changes, one forced, one was obviously tactical. Cavani coming on for Greenwood. Obviously had an immediate change in the way United played. I mean, they did play well in the first half, but without any kind of real impact. And then let's talk about Cavani's performance. It was fantastic, no?
Excellent. I think the commentator, I'm not sure where you guys were watching it, but the stream that I was watching from, the commentator said Cavani has made his entire career scoring such goals, being in the right place at the right time. That's what he brings to Manchester United. He brings that killer instinct that we've been lacking. You know, when we've had strikers like, say, Martial, who just turns up at will if he wants to, he's on it. But very rarely do we very rarely have our strikers, not just Martial, but our strikers been instrumental in just turning the game around. A lost game, they help us win. I think Cavani's done that, and he deserves to start over. At least he has to be the first name, and then apart from that, you can choose the wingers around him. But just excellent, and his link up with Bruno was really good. He's playing as if he's known these guys for a long time. He knew exactly where Rashford's ball was headed. He knew he had to dive, even though there was a sea of players between Bruno and him. And then he still anticipated that okay, the ball's going to come from here, and I need to be ready to tap it in. Um, and and his cross for the first goal, brilliant. Just whipped it in. It wasn't a high fancy cross, and it was just a regular cross, but it found the man so well. And if you give Bruno the ball over there, he's not going to miss. So all in all, just Cavani is an excellent player to have. He's a winner. He won trophies everywhere. He brings that mentality, the killer winner mentality. Um, so like really glad to have him, and I think he should be starting games.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, his movement just throughout the match, his build-up play, like you said,
Yeah,
I think, like again, the first goal he scored, I think, is more underrated, mostly because it came off a deflection. But the fact is that he followed where the ball was going to be, and he put himself into a dangerous position. And I mean, it was a fantastic header. And then the second one, his movement just ghosted past four Southampton defenders to stoop low and get that header. And it's one of those things where we said, or rather, people said that Cavani would either be Falcao or Ibrahimovic, and it's very clear already that he's the Ibrahimovic signing that we needed. Really, we needed a leader. We needed someone with more experience, a natural goal scorer to help the younger players improve on their game and show them a level up, really. And it showed that. And of course, United then won the game. 3 points. They're now 2 points away from the top of the league, where Tottenham and Liverpool apparently jointly hold it, but it's actually Tottenham ahead. Whatever goal difference does count, regardless of what ESPN have to say. But it's the fact is that our game in hand is so crucial,
yeah.
even though it's I don't know when it's going to be played. Don't think they've scheduled it. It still seems that United still have to keep winning because it doesn't look like anyone else is losing any momentum. So I mean, going into the next few games of the season in December, which is obviously going to be a tricky set of matches. I mean, how important is it that United just keep the momentum going in the league?
So for me, the game that we just played were the really difficult ones, the Chelsea and Arsenal back to back. Uh, but I think in terms of importance, these are the most important games. The game against Southampton, the game that we're going to play against West Ham, because these are the ones that ultimately decide the top spots. Because uh, usually the top sides, they don't take for granted that they're going to beat other top six sides. But what every manager has down is you have to beat the lower sides. You have to beat the West Hams. You have, I'm saying lower side because West Ham are currently fifth. But you know what I mean. You have to
Mm.
beat the Burnleys. You have to beat the West Broms. So for me, these are the most important games because if you drop points here, you're dropping from very crucial points that other teams have already picked up. So, uh, so for example, Spurs drew, so that's a good thing. But suppose take Liverpool for example, they picked up 3 points against West Ham, and we suppose drop 3 points from or even 2 points against West Ham, and then when we play Liverpool, uh, there's that and they beat us, then that immediately puts a 6 point gap between the two of us. So for me, these are the most important games that you need to win, and importance in the sense it's not even easy to beat such sides. They can be really really tricky because say what you want about you can call them lower sides, but they have some really good players. And West Ham have really been a pawn in our side in the
Mm.
past. They denied us Champions League football pretty much in the last game at Upton Park. Our
Oh, yeah.
last game, but yeah, the horrible one. Um, so for me, each and every single game is important, but these are the must-win games. If you don't win this, then it's going to be really, really difficult the tail end of the season.
Absolutely, and we'll get on to the West Ham game in just a bit. We have to go on to a game it's not normally. We won't go into it a lot because I mean it was just yesterday, so we're still feeling it a little bit, I think. But we'll go on to the key parts of it. PSG came to Old Trafford and won in the end in a very even battle, you have to say. United suffered for the early onslaught PSG had on them, and Neymar scored after a deflected shot from Mbappe. It was a really tidy finish, but it was, I think, quite a lucky attempt given the circumstances of the goal. I think United reacted well, grew into the game, and got themselves a lucky equaliser from a deflection, but really well played from Wan-Bissaka and a good shot from Martial in the build-up. But still a slight bit of luck on that, and United finished the half strongly and positively. Fred controversially booked instead of sent off, but we'll get onto that in a tiny bit. Then into the second half, United started well again, forced a couple of good saves off Navas and missed a few big chances, and again we'll talk about that. But then Fred was sent off after another deflected goal from Marquinhos this time. And then things just all went downhill from there. United threw the kitchen sink and it just didn't really work. There weren't any chances of note really after PSG's second goal. Really did have the look of the Sevilla game in it quite a bit. And then PSG sealed off the game on the counter-attack, and Neymar really wrapping up a pretty good performance from him. Let's talk about the biggest controversy of the game: Fred not getting a red card in the first half, and then getting one in the second, ironically, undeservedly. Let's talk about the headbutt first. Some people have said that because Paredes dived, it shouldn't have been a red card, and because Fred barely moves his head, I mean, he was sort of only warranting a yellow. Do you see that logic, or do you think that it was a very, very it was an incorrect call?
I think it's wait, incorrect call as in the fact that he got a yellow card. I think that is an incorrect call. It should have been a red, because these are the VAR times. Even the smallest things get punished, and it's so obvious. Everybody who has watched football for even maybe a year knows that if you go sticking your head into other people's faces, you're going to get sent off regardless. And I mean, it's so easy to not do it, and then you still see players doing it, and Fred doing it in such an important game. Well, that has been interesting. I was running the Twitter account for this game, right? So I was doing the live tweeting, and as soon as I saw that incident, I already typed out minute 21, Fred is sent off. But I was just waiting for the referee to come and wave the card, and then I was going to hit send. But then, well, luckily, I was really relieved when he pulled out a yellow card. But that was definitely a sending off. And when he did get sent off, that he clearly got the ball. But I think the first thing that people must have mentioned in the team talk at halftime was anything that Fred does, try to get him sent off. So, and Herrera, I just said how he played for us. We know what he's going to do. He saw Fred's outstretched leg and he said, I'm not leaving this opportunity. He goes and he tumbles over, and he's going to get sent off for that. And well, even though that wasn't really a yellow card, I think I don't think we can complain much, because he stayed on the pitch for 15 minutes more than he should have ideally. So I'm not complaining about the red card. It was a red. Just got to blame Fred for that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And it came straight after the goal we conceded, which was, like I said, a bit lucky, or rather unfortunate, really, because a shot that was going nowhere took a deflection off a PSG player, landed into Marquinhos' feet, and he just finished under David De Gea. I mean, if he'd taken even half a second more, De Gea probably would have got there based on the finish. But we won't talk about PSG's chances. We'll talk about United's ones because they had so many in the opening 20 minutes of the game of the second half, even. Notably, Cavani chipping it onto the crossbar, which was unfortunate. But then you got to look at Bruno getting played in and then choosing to square it to Cavani when he could have easily just drilled it past Navas, and of course the big one, Martial essentially missing an open goal. Suraj, we're not going to focus just on Martial. We've got a poll which has talked about that in general, but the missed chances. I mean, it's such a demoralising thing when you miss those kind of chances, and it's clearly had an effect on United. But I mean, what do you do about that? Certainly from Ollie's perspective.
Uh, well, that's one thing you can't blame Ole for. Igalo would have finished that chance that Martial missed. So it's not about uh, it's not about fielding the right score and anything because anybody should have converted those chances. The Cavani shot was that was I think that was really close. So I'm not really going to count that as a definite chance. The Bruno one, he was completely split. He hadn't made a decision by the time it was time to release the ball. Even he was kind of in half a mind, should I square, should I? Which is really uncharacteristic on his part because he's very, very sharp in decision making. But when Martial missed it, was just, what are you doing? And I think 5 minutes later, he missed another shot where Bruno set up the rebound from Cavani's chip and he completely blocked his lines. Um, so you just can't be missing those chances against last year's semi-finalists, especially especially when you need a point and you know how hungry they are to get these points. You just can't be because suppose you're playing Luton Town. If you miss one chance, you know another chance is coming like in a minute. But with uh, PSG, they're not going to give you those chances, especially after we beat them at their home ground. They came absolutely determined. And Solskjaer couldn't do anything about those misses because, well, what's he going to do? He's a finisher. That miss probably bothered him more than it bothered us. Uh, so yeah, you can't really blame him. You've got to blame the players have to take. I mean, Solskjaer does share part of the blame for losing this game, but when it comes to just missing the chances, then it's completely on the players, not on him.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about that now. The blame that most people have on Ollie is not for the starting 11 because the starting 11 I'm pretty
Yeah.
happy saying was nigh on perfect. Van der Beek was the one question mark, but I think if you have the front three that United played, you can play counter, you can play possession. You can play long ball. It works in every single way. The one thing he was criticised for is firstly not taking off Fred at half time, which I disagree with. Maybe after an hour, I could see that being a reasonable step, especially after we missed those chances. We need to get the ball forward quicker. But certainly after the goal, I was surprised to see Cavani, Rashford, and Martial all come off, especially because Rashford was an injury. And so I thought, well, leave one of the strikers on. And then he took off both of them. I mean, do you see logic with that, or do you think the subs were the right ones?
I think none of the subs were right. Probably only the Paul Pogba one was right. But when I saw Van Bissaka off for Igalo, I was like, what? What are you doing, man? Uh, Mainly, I think Fred had to go off at halftime because he was a walking red card in that game. Nothing he was doing was coming off. All his tackles were off. In general, his game was off. He was not even very solid with possession as well. I think, but I see why Solskjaer may have left him on because he said that he must have thought that we finished the half well.
Mm.
If we carry on with this in the second half, and I have a sneaky feeling that Ander Herrera was brought on just to get Fred off because until Herrera came on, Fred was playing well. He wasn't doing anything wrong. In fact, he got elbowed by Neymar, which just completely went under the radar for some reason. Um, so I have a feeling that Herrera was brought on just for that. But anyway, you shouldn't be falling for those tricks. I thought that after the 60th minute, Solskjaer should have just said, Fred, your job's done. You've survived longer than you should have been on the pitch. Come off, Paul Pogba on, or Van de Beek on. And even a half-time change would have been good, but I think that was just really poor game management. And I think Solskjaer has been trusting his players, and he does it to a fault at times. Uh, and I have a very bad feeling that he will be his own end at the club, because our best times have come because of him, and our worst times have also come because of him. So it's just a matter of time until when the worst time becomes unbearable and he might get the sack, unfortunately. But in terms of substitutions, I think for me, Martial was our worst attacker, obviously,
Hmm.
and he was the last one to come off. I heard that Rashford had to come off because he was grabbing his left part of his back or something.
I think it was his shoulder.
Shoulder. Oh, okay. All right. I'm not sure, but I did hear it's injury related, so that I maybe understand. But when you're searching for an equalizer, I don't understand the logic behind getting a player like Cavani on, especially after what he did against Southampton.
Yeah.
It's really sad to see. And I think we finished the game with Mason Greenwood and Igalo up front, which just literally makes no sense to me. When you're chasing a game and you take off Cavani and Martial, I still understand, but why Cavani? Just
Mm.
think we need to question.
No, absolutely, and I think that is the thing is that everyone has a right to question managerial decisions. They're not, free of criticism just because they've got a job there, and we're just fans and not qualified in that sense. But the fact is that criticism doesn't necessarily mean that that they're done in a job,
Yeah,
because they can get things wrong. I mean, I know I've criticised Jose for some decisions that he made, substitutions, lineups. Same for Van Gaal, same for Moyes, and even a couple of times Sir Alex Ferguson. I remember a bit critical in the 2011 Champions League final when he went to try and take Barcelona on toe to toe, and thought not the best decision. We lost that game,
yeah,
and maybe been a bit pragmatic, that would have worked. But you can be critical and still not think that things are not, things are rubbish and everything's going wrong, which is something that I did sort of take offence to after the match. People, the Ollie out trending, 6,000 people, 6,000 tweets on it. I just thought that's really unnecessary. And although that is a minority of Manchester United fans, it is still one that you do see a lot of, certainly on social media. But we'll go back onto that Martial point, because obviously he was at, I say at fault, but he missed two big chances um, during that game, and our poll result has come up with him being the one at his low form. So let's talk about that now. It's just, well, I mean, what's gone wrong? The man who scored most of our goals last season, 23 goals, and our highest creator with 12 assists. I mean, he had a fantastic season. So what's gone wrong so far? Do you think that red card against Tottenham has really hit him hard?
uh, well, it shouldn't have, because everyone bounced back from that result and did their job. But what's bothering me is he can't even find the target. He's not even able to, find space and then create something for himself, which was a really good part of his game earlier, because all he needed to do last season was give him the ball around the box and he'll do something with it. And this season, he's just been really off. I don't know why, but these are the type of players that I'm not really keen on at Manchester United. Actually, my perspective has changed a lot since they signed Bruno Fernandes, because it's given me a baseline to say, okay, that's a player. No excuses, nothing about the jersey number, nothing. Just comes in, does his job, and gets off. Uh, but players like Martial who just turn up when they want to, it really doesn't sit right with me, because I think these are the kind of players that will eventually hold us back. Because okay, I'm not saying that if it weren't for him, we would have definitely won that game. But you need to look at the chances. We would have converted those chances and been in a better position, had a better probability of winning. The Sevilla semi-final. we missed so many good chances, and then when Sevilla got a chance, they beat us. I think it's got to be way more clinical, and I think if we get a good offer for him in the summer, we should definitely get rid of him and get a better. This is a strong statement, but uh, I think there will be a kind of uh, show of intent on Manchester United's part if we get rid of him. But get rid of him with an asterisk that says replace him with someone equally good, but someone who uh, is on it every single day, I mean, every single game. So, for example, if we sell him and we get Erling Haaland in, I'm all for that deal. That the man's insane. Uh, but as in, don't sell him just to make the deal money.
Mm. Well, that's the thing is we don't tend to buy big unless we sell big first, which is the point. And the links of players being moved away are Paul Pogba mostly, but I mean that would obviously it could happen in the sense that Martial would facilitate another move. For me, I'm a big fan of Martial. I think he just needs one goal, a key goal, and he'll start firing again. And I really hope he does because he's brought I think United fans a lot of joy down the years, and he was. I think he's only not reached double figures in goals one season, and that was the first season under Mourinho. We've had a couple of questions from a couple of our writers. Subham has said Greenwood or Igalo for the next few matches, or stick with Martial, who's yet to find his mojo. So do you think we should be dropping Martial? I think that's assuming that Rashford isn't fit for the West Ham game.
Oh, sorry, I completely made your question. I was reading the comment. I'm really sorry. Go on.
So Greenwood or Igalo for the next matches,
Oh,
provided Rashford is
okay, that's fine.
not fit, and Martial, or stick with Martial.
Uh, just one thing I'd like to add is if PSG have to send Moise Kean back to Everton after his loan, I have a sneaky feeling they might come for Martial. They might come knocking for him, but
Mm.
I wouldn't stick Martial in against West Ham. I'd put Greenwood in there, not Igalo. Uh, I'd get Greenwood in there because I thought I'd put Martial in against Istanbul Basaksehir and hope he scores a couple of goals and gets his form back. There's one more game that I hoped he'd start, but he didn't. Which game was that? The West Brom one. I
Oh,
really hope he'd get a couple of goals in there and find his feet because I thought that was the perfect game for him to get back,
mm.
but he didn't again. So I think we've got to make some difficult choices. Get Greenwood in, and but keep getting Martial off the bench. So we still got to give him a chance to prove himself and whatnot. So I'll definitely play Greenwood in the next game.
Yeah, I think the fact is that Martial, I think when he's got something to prove, he can hopefully do that. And I think if Ollie is ruthless and he does put him on the bench and say you've got to come on and make a difference, prove to me you can start in this team, prove to me that Cavani isn't the first choice striker, I think he might shine because I think that is where he has proven himself coming off the bench initially in the 2017-18 season, scoring. I think he scored 5 goals in a row coming off the bench, but that's a decision that Ollie has to make. And tracking back to Ollie, we've had another comment from Arian who has said criticism is absolutely fine, but some fans are going on like no manager has ever made the mistake Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has made before. He took a gamble and it didn't pay off. Fate is in our hands, and that's what matters. I'll go on to that last part in a second, but I mean, do you agree with that statement? That I mean, it's almost like no one has ever kept a player on with a yellow card and they've got sent off.
Uh, I'm not sure, but I think it was common sense that he should have taken him off. Now, I just hope that Oli learns from this mistake, and because if he just repeats this mistake, then it's not a mistake anymore. And well, when you talk about fans, I really don't care if a person is Ole in or Ole out, but I don't mind fans or Ole out either. but they need to be consistent. They can't be Ole out today, Ole in tomorrow, and then Ole out after next game. If you're Ole out, just be consistently Ole out and defend yourself. If you're Ole in, just defend yourself again. Just don't keep flip flopping. That's what I find annoying. I don't find the Ole in or the Ole out annoying as such. Um, but yeah, I think Ole has been learning, but then you also need to ask the question that this December is going to be his second year in charge as Manchester United manager, completing second year. Uh, so how good are we from the squad that he inherited? And but I'm willing to give him this season as well to see where we finish because the last season I was quite skeptical about Ole, and I think I was even Ole out at one point after we lost to Newcastle, and I was just a consistently poor run of form. And then we got Bruno, and then I saw what what he could do when he had his transfer targets, and I just held my hand up and said I got it wrong. So that's why, unlike last season, this season I don't want to speak too soon and say that hey, this guy's not right. I want to give him the entire season, see what can be done. The January transfer window is an important one as well. Uh, so yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, that is a very valid point. I think the fact is that he can't make those mistakes again if he keeps making the same errors, which is something that we have been critical of with the substitutes against Severe, and when we have been losing, he hasn't made the right substitutes, and that is something he has to work on. But certainly, if he thinks that Fred is not, or someone in that circumstance is not going to last another 10, 15 minutes, they just have to be taken off. He just has to be that little bit more ruthless. Same with Martial. If he's not playing well, take him out of the team and see if he works. But if he doesn't, that could, like you said, it could lead to his downfall, him being too trusting in players that maybe aren't in the best form, but are still what he would count as a starting player. And he's certainly been a bit more ruthless with Paul Pogba. We can say that for certain. The last point of Arian's comment is the fate is in our hands and that is what matters. And I think that is a very important statement because it's certainly something that we've seen from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's team, that they might stutter at the penultimate hurdle, but they've seemed to get over the line in some circumstances. Say the group stages of the Europa League, we lost that penultimate game against Astana and then won 4-0 against Alkmaar to qualify top and, well, qualify altogether. Certainly in the Premier League, we drew our last couple of games against Southampton and West Ham, but then the last game of the season, all we needed was a point to finish in the top four. We won to finish third, which was obviously a big statement that we finished above Chelsea, even though they won as well, so the pressure was on. So I think that is something we are seeing. Regardless of the semi-finals, I think they were different circumstances. But those kind of hurdles are the ones that United are going to need on Tuesday night. And I hope that the other circumstances surrounding Upamecano not being available, Leipzig clearly struggling to deal with counter-attacking defence not being as strong as we would expect, as you saw against Besiktas here. Hopefully that will help United, and we'll get onto that in a bit. But let's talk about West Ham. Massive game going to the Olympic Stadium. It's going to be the first game that United will play where fans will be allowed back in the stadiums. It won't happen at Old Trafford just yet because Manchester is still in Tier 3, but London is safe for now, and there will be, I think, 2,000 fans coming back in for West Ham. Do you think that's going to have a massive impact?
not really sure about massive because if I'm not wrong, as it is, the West Ham fans are really far away from the pitch, and it's just 2,000 of them. And okay, I'm not really sure, but all 2,000 are going to be West Ham fans or even the United?
No away fans, I don't think.
Oh, okay, no, all the fans. Um, I'm not really sure if it will make a difference really. And even if 2,000 fans chanting makes a difference, then uh, it's going to be really difficult for players to make it in the sport. Um, I don't really think it should make a big difference. Go out and get the job done.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, of course, West Ham being in such good form as well isn't helpful. They found a system that works. Moyes has got his own Fellaini 2.0 in Souček, and the fullbacks are starting to click in this back five that's working. And whether it's Antonio or Haller up front and Jared Bowen's all doing all sorts of wonders really for West Ham in this almost free roaming position he has.
Antonio.
Sorry?
Mikel Antonio.
Yeah, and Antonio as well, back from injury, and he played well, I think, in the last game, but I think he got taken off after the hour mark or something. But it's certainly not a team that's going to sit back and let United have the ball. They're going to be aggressive. Seems that Declan Rice turns up in these kind of games where he can show off how much he's worth for 90 million or something like that in this game, and then he'll drop a 5 out of 10 in an England game. But it's always one where this team turns up. We haven't won at the Olympic Stadium since 2017. I think we've drawn once and lost twice in that time, which is, I mean, it's an awful run of form, really. It's one of the worst ones we currently have. So how would you say we have to beat this West Ham side? Because not many teams have managed to do that.
Yeah, West Ham do seem like the side that we almost never beat, right? Now, tell me, when was the last time? I think last season we didn't beat them at all.
No.
One was a final loss, and then one was the 1-1 draw.
Yeah. There was a 2-1 win, I think, Ollie's third or fourth game as permanent manager, and I think it was a 2-1 win. Paul Pogba scored 2 penalties, I think.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I don't remember. But yeah, how do you beat these guys? They even Man City didn't beat them. I think only Liverpool and Everton have beaten them this season.
Yeah.
Hey, but even Southampton were in a similar run of form before we played them. They were really winning a lot of games, and I think since Spurs beat them, they hadn't lost until we beat them last weekend. So I'm really hoping something similar happens against. Oh, LASK scored against Tottenham.
Oh, have they? That's something at least.
But again, I think the only thing that should drive us for this game is that if we win and we get a 3 points, we'll be just 2 points off Spurs and Liverpool. But obviously, them not having played that game, and then we'll have a game in hand. So we're really close to the top, even though we're just 9th at the table. In terms of points, we're actually quite close. And again, if we lose this, it's going to be a huge blow going into the RB Leipzig game, to go into the Leipzig game with our hopes all are, in a winning mentality. So, yeah, I'm not really sure how to beat them because I haven't seen a lot of West Ham this season. I just saw the Liverpool game. I saw the Spurs game, which again was a madman winner. Yeah, they have Lanzini coming off the bench, which should be difficult in case they are down against us. But one thing, from whatever I've seen about them, they don't. They're still vulnerable at the back. You can still walk in and score. They're not like solid at the back. They're not going to give you a hard time when you go forward. So I think we're going to have to get someone like Cavani because West Ham are a rough side, and Cavani is, I think, strong enough to deal with them. And hope there's some Bruno magic in there as well.
Yeah, I think one thing that was clear was when, certainly when Spurs played and they scored 3 goals, Harry Kane was certainly focal in that attack, and I think whipping it in from the left-hand side from Reguilon, and we've got Telles, and they have Kane, we have Cavani. It's similar circumstances, and I think that is what's going to be a big factor, and certainly something that Arian agrees with. Cavani and Martial were taken off early against PSG to get them ready for West Ham because 21 is still coming. He's taking a few ideas off vintage Reds with the 21. Have to see. But another comment we've had from Dylan is that it would be incredibly embarrassing to lose to a Moyes side after getting destroyed by a former manager in Mourinho earlier this season, and he's absolutely right. This
Yeah.
loss to West Ham now would be so detrimental to any momentum we built up in the last 4 or 5 games. But we'll go on to predictions and predicted 11s first. So, how many changes do you see from the side that played against Southampton? We'll disregard the PSG team.
Southampton, I think Martial's got to go. Sorry, Greenwood started that game. So, um, and we played a diamond as well. So Donny Van de Beek play. Uh, that team was a good one, but I think instead of instead of Greenwood, I put Cavani and then let Greenwood come off the bench because the PSG game, the takeaway for me was the understanding between Rashford and Cavani because they were building up really well in terms during counter attacks and all. So I'd like to see that flourish a little more because they both play a little different style. I don't keep saying Martial. Rashford's dribbling is really good and pace as well, and he just tries to get in. But Cavani is much better at just being clinical. He gives the ball, he'll put it in the back of the net. And with Bruno playing behind them, I think it's just the perfect triangle for me. Uh, so I definitely put uh, Cavani in place of Greenwood. And I think the rest of the team should remain the same. Fred may get benched after a poor performance.
Mm.
But then who do you put in his place? There's Mata, or
There's,
you could there's Matic and McTominay double pivot.
mm,
Um, but again, that's I think I'm not really sure how that will be. With they're both extremely defensive.
yeah,
So with Fred, at least you have the creative outlet. Uh, so probably go for a. That's a really tough one. I'm glad I'm not a manager. Uh, I think I'd go for a spoiler squad. I'd go for a 4-4-2 diamond, but I'd put Matic in there and let McTominay play a little more advanced role. But we will need to be solid at the back because, like you said, they have Fellaini 2.0, so
yeah,
we will need to be pretty solid.
yeah, absolutely. Well, what I would say, again, I agree. I think the back four will stay the same. The goalkeeper, obviously, if De Gea is fit, he'll start. Greenwood should swap out for Cavani because, I mean, there's no way he doesn't start after two really great performances. Actually, three if you include Basak Shahir. But Rashford, if he's fit, will start. If not, it will probably be Martial because I think Solskjaer won't drop him just yet. I think he might sub him off earlier if he doesn't play well, but I do expect Rashford to start if that's the case. And then I think he might go for a diamond just because West Ham play a back five. That's how West Brom played. That's how Leipzig played. And I think a diamond does work well when breaking teams down, especially when Fernandes and Van der Beek will start. I do see Fred starting this game, especially because he won't be playing midweek, and so he can just play his heart out, cover every blade of grass as he does normally play, and not have to worry about injury. We might have to worry about a second yellow, but that depends on the game. And then it's a question of a Matic or McTominay. I didn't think McTominay did anything wrong in the PSG game, but I think coming back from injury, it would be a bit risky to play him in back-to-back games where he has going to be as robust as possible. So I think maybe Matic does play that. So I do expect only one change in Cavani from the Southampton side. But do you see a change in fortune? Do you see West Ham getting any points here, or do you see United coming away with a rare win at the Olympic Stadium?
But it has to be a win. I don't think anything less than a win should be acceptable at this stage. Uh, but I think United go into this game as I think we'll still go into this game as the underdogs because of West Ham's run of form and our uh, performance against PSG, which acts in our favor because when our back's against the wall, we play well. So I'm going to go for a skeptical 2-1 win.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. I think the fact is that West Ham will fancy themselves because they have got dynamic players in attack and they've got a well drilled machine at the back, and the aerial problems they do cause um, do seriously have an effect on our team because Lindelof does tend to struggle against big strikers or big presences in the box. So if they get Souček on him instead of Maguire, then that is going to be a problem. But I do think if Maguire does read those problems, he can solve them because, again, he had another fantastic game against PSG. I think the fact is, one thing we didn't say is that the defence was pretty solid all game, and that is something that we have seen over the last 5 or 6 matches that Maguire and Lindelof has started to work very, very well. Again, you have to say, but it's just about whether West Ham turn up and whether United can match their aggression and match their will to win with, like you said, backs against the wall and being the underdogs. I think that would work in our favour, and hopefully uh, tactics will have to be employed because Moyes knows how to set up this side. He's had 2 shots at it, and this time it's working a lot better than it was the first time. So we'll have to see, but it's all about getting the results, and I do see it being a scrappy 2-1 win as well. But I could also see United keeping West Ham out if they play as well as they did defensively, at least against PSG, even though they conceded the 2 freak goals. But we'll move on to Leipzig, which is, I think, probably United's biggest game of the season so far, really, because if they fail to qualify for the Champions League, it is back to Europa League football, and then it seems that progress has gone out of the door almost because all those steps made to get to the Champions League have just fallen away in pretty much 2 matches of the PSG game and the Başakşehir game, because they were both winnable games, and if not for pretty much the 2 goals conceded that sealed the game off, that was we could have won that match, or both matches even. So the Leipzig game, I expect Solskjaer to use a diamond again because it works so well, and the fact that Upamecano is missing for Leipzig is massive boost for United. How many changes do you see from the 11 you predicted against West Ham?
Usually, what I've noticed with Solskjaer is that if he sees that one team has beaten, one of his United teams has beaten another side, then he'll almost 99% of the time just keep the same 11. I think he did that with Chelsea last season, and that was a semi-final game that we lost. It put the same 11 that beat them earlier. So I think, I think when I say same 11, I mean 10 out of 11 players same. So I think we're going to have the same players who played against Leipzig, obviously without Fred. Uh, Fred did play the last game, right?
Mm.
So I think the same players, but this time I'm pretty confident that Nagelsmann's not gonna make the same mistakes. He's a new young young coach who's just learning all the time. So he's gonna come out all guns blazing, and he would have learned from his mistakes. And there is no way we're gonna have it as easy as we had it last time. Even with Upamecano missing, he's gonna do something. Did you watch the game against their game against Istanbul?
I only watched the last 10 minutes, I'm afraid.
Right. Okay. I was going to refer to that part only. As soon as they conceded their third goal, and it was 3-3. Not one Leipzig head dropped. None of them thought, "Oh no, this is over." They just got back and they started attacking as if nothing had happened. And when you replicate that to what happened with United, as soon as Marquinhos scored, we was extremely sloppy. Uh, just no possession, nothing. And then I think after Pogba came on, we started building more. But until then, we just completely dropped off. So I expect a really difficult game. And in terms of lineup, I'm going to keep the same one that we did last time.
Absolutely. I think that seems totally reasonable. I think the fact is that we have a team that can beat this Leipzig side 5-0, really. But everyone does forget that, I mean, it was 1-0 until I think the 70th minute, really, when Bruno came on, which is the big thing, is that we were we weren't hanging in, but we certainly weren't comfortable until very late on, and then things just fell apart for them. But we'll have to see if that can be replicated. But I do expect it to be much more cagey. Again, I expect mostly the team to be the same. I would probably see a diamond formation again, where McTominay and Matic will sit. Maybe even have Matic, Pogba, and Van der Beek. I could see that, and then Bruno obviously at 10, which would be, I mean, unbelievably aggressive. And I think if United want to force Leipzig into sitting deep, that would be the team to do that. But it could backfire. It really just depends on how United turn up, how Leipzig turn up, and certainly how momentum can be built ahead from Saturday. But prediction-wise, for me, I'll go first this time. I'll say I'll be optimistic that United can get a win because this Leipzig side certainly can concede goals. They showed that against Başakşehir, but while they were wonder strikes, really all outside the box, they did allow space to be kind of given to these players. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win, but I certainly don't expect it to be easy. It would be easy if Başakşehir could beat PSG. That would be really nice, but obviously I don't see that happening. What about for you? How do you see this game going?
I'm going to go for a 1-0 win. I really don't want to jinx it, but their attackers aren't that great. I think the only one I'm actually worried about is Dani Olmo because he's excellent. Even his goal against Istanbul was really, really good. But in general, I think they're really missing Timo Werner. Poulsen is he's only all right. He's not that great, and he was literally no threat against United. There's no particular attribute about him that really stands out. So in terms of attacking, I'm only worried about Dani Olmo, and if Zabitzer starts, then him. Emil Forsberg to some extent, but well, not that much. And in terms of defense, I really hope we can take advantage of Upamecano's absence, and just 1-0 from anywhere will be fine.
Absolutely. And it's, we've got a comment just quickly, the last comment of the podcast. Arian once again says, I think the first goal will be huge against Leipzig with such big stakes on the line. And he's absolutely right. If United concede, it could be a bit nervy, although we have seen them recover from such deficits. But I think if they get the first goal, they can sit back and then counter, which is what they love to do. And Leipzig will know that a point's not good enough for them, certainly with their shocking goal difference. So it's a crucial game that will be under high scrutiny if United do lose. I'm afraid that is all we have time for this week. Thank you for listening, and thank you to Suraj for joining me. It's a pleasure as always.
Thanks for having me.
And it's going to be a massive set of games that we talk about every time. It's always going to be high pressure, high stakes, as I said, but must-win games to come, and hopefully momentum ahead of next week, or the week after, which will be the Manchester derby. If you have any questions or any topics you would like for us to discuss next time, please comment below on the YouTube video or on the Twitter poll. And if you enjoyed this, please like this video.